Last year, the Pikmin series made its triumphant return with the release of the long-anticipated Pikmin 4, alongside ports of Pikmin 1 and 2 to the Nintendo Switch. Since then, Pikmin marketing has not died down, with Pikmin 4 becoming the best-selling entry in the series by a large margin. Since the release of this new entry, we have continued to receive plenty of official posts regarding the title, including new trailers, merchandise, brand deals, and other content. The Japanese official website, in particular, still gets frequent updates, some of which bear major implications for series lore. Pikmin Bloom still receives new updates as well, with new events and Decor Pikmin releasing regularly. With the series experiencing unprecedented popularity, questions have of course sprung up about the next game in the series, and a somewhat recent leak claims to have the answer. While the next numbered entries are in development and will feature classic gameplay, the next game in the series to be released will be a spin-off launched in the next fiscal year. In this video, we're going to speculate on what a potential Pikmin spin-off game released within this time frame would look like. There's of course no way of knowing if this leak is real or not. I've heard claims this account, Nash Weedle, has been correct before, but I cannot verify those claims myself, and there have been many fake Pikmin leaks of the past, such as Pikmin 4's infamous Orange Blob Pikmin and Bulbmin Night Mode leaks, one of which I know the people who made. Is this leak just a hoax like these prior leaks? It's quite possible, and so for the sake of this video, I'd like to speculate on a potential spin-off which aligns with these rather vague leaks, but also I'd like to spend some time entertaining other possibilities for a spin-off in the series. That all said, my name is Vantage Emblem, I post Pikmin content here, and you should subscribe if you want to see more of that in your YouTube feed. Yeah, that's right, you. Subscribe. Okay. Now that that's taken care of, let's take a look at the leaks in detail to build our speculative criteria. Here's what we know, provided the leaks are correct. The next entry in the series will be a spin-off rather than a numbered entry. The entry will also feature a new type of gameplay, which means it probably will have more in common with Pikmin Bloom, Pikmin Adventure, and Hey Pikmin than it does with the main series, all three of which have dramatically different gameplay than the mainline entries and are a much more stripped-back experience compared to the mainline games. In fact, on the subject of Hey Pikmin, there's nothing in the leaks that expressly said this game is not a Hey Pikmin 2, though the specific wording of the tweet specifies it has a new type of gameplay, which probably means it's not a direct sequel. Still, I'd like to take some time in this video to look into what a potential Hey Pikmin 2 could look like as well, if for no other reason than to play into all the memes about it. Oh, I want to fan those flames. Anyway, this rumored Pikmin spin-off will also change the artistic style, though no information is given on what the art style is, which gives us a lot of room to speculate. It has to release in the next fiscal year as well, which gives us little to no information on whether or not it will release on new hardware or on the existing Switch. Finally, the main post is followed up with an hourglass emoji. This reply to the tweet comes from a different account, belonging to a journalist attached to UniversoNintendo.com. I can't actually tell if this is a part of the leak or just additional speculation, but from the sources I've seen, there's a chance it might be part of the leak, and I've seen discussion around it, so I decided to consider it for the sake of this video, but definitely, if you're taking this whole leak with a grain of salt, definitely take this part with an extra grain of salt. Anyway, this could mean it's only a matter of time until the entry releases, or that maybe time is a major mechanic. Maybe it involves manipulating time on the planet, or perhaps turning back time. Maybe it borrows the time mechanic from the main series. We'll talk through these options as we get into it. Alright, now that our criteria is defined, I'd like to take a look at what this game could actually look like. I think first and foremost, we should talk about what the genre of this potential spin-off could be. I think that's probably the best place to start with this discussion. This is a really open-ended question. I mean, this is a chance to redefine what Pikmin can be. Pikmin already exists within the action-adventure and strategy genres at the same time, and its unique blend of real-time strategy, collectathon, and exploration elements has led to the coining of Pikmin as either a sui generis game series, meaning a series of a genre entirely of its own, or as a part of a larger Pikmin-like Dandori genre. For more information on this topic, including the genre and its history, I recommend checking out the video in the iCard now. To address the question of what this spin-off game's genre could be, I have prepared 10 different genres that are important to the history of the Dandori genre or to the Pikmin series as a whole. I'd like to talk through an example game in each of these genres using the criteria we had just discussed and build, to the best of my ability, a game I think could be a good fit for the series. To get started, let's take a look at our first genre. Puzzle platformer / action platformer. This potential game's gameplay could be very similar to Hey Pikmin. In fact, it could be a direct sequel. The game would consist of Olimar or another leader moving through stages using the Pikmin to solve puzzles. The leader would have a limited jump or hover, and stages would have various treasures to collect. But if we assume this really is a Hey Pikmin 2, could it actually be good? To Hey Pikmin's credit, though, according to Twitter user Partially Frequent Pikmin Facts, it sold more copies than Conquered, so that's something. Not that those numbers are, at all impressive. Hey Pikmin is easily the worst performing Pikmin entry, and this game would need to be a massive shakeup of the original game's formula to be successful with the reputation that the original game had. So, there's a couple questions that would need to be answered. First, would Nintendo actually stick with the same devs as the original Hey Pikmin, Arzest? It's possible, though they also have a somewhat shaky track record, with the company being behind not only the original Hey Pikmin, but also Balan Wonderworld, which isn't a good look. Now, given the leaks, we know that the gameplay would be different, but we've seen Hey Pikmin gameplay before, so maybe we could see the addition of more strategy elements, like selecting what types of Pikmin to bring to stages, or perhaps having to carry treasures back to the start of each level, rather than just getting Olimar to the treasures. Perhaps, complying with the hourglass emoji, we could see some sort of time management mechanic applied to this. I think Hey Pikmin could be interesting with a bit of urgency added, perhaps with levels each being timed and exploration being a more difficult thing. Perhaps the player's going to have to make choices on what they can or can't do during a specific run. Maybe there's only so much time to go through levels. I do think that this is a plausible path for the game to take, though, especially because if the game's released next fiscal year, they're not exactly reinventing the wheel with getting this game made and out. That being said, would it be 2D or 3D? I could see a 2D spiritual successor for the Hey Pikmin making a lot of sense, but I could also see a 3D puzzle platformer game starring just the Pikmin, or perhaps starring Ochi or Moss instead of Olimar. That would be different from regular Pikmin games, because it's, again, a spin-off. Overall, I think this game has a medium likeliness to be the spin-off, probably low to medium likeliness, all things considered. The next genre I'd like to take a look at is similar to puzzle platformer / action platformer. It's the Metroidvania genre. Classic Pikmin gameplay is honestly similar to a Metroidvania in the way it gates progression based on Pikmin types, and this game could bring this all together by applying classic Metroidvania tropes. If the game is 2D, it could be similar to Hey Pikmin gameplay-wise, but borrow more elements to the main series. Things like more strategy elements like selecting what Pikmin types to bring, or perhaps having to carry treasures back to some sort of base location, could be really, really cool spins to the general 2D Pikmin platformer idea, especially if you have to return to the base every night and the game is timed, thus incorporating the hourglass, right? The art style change, I mean, it would be switching to 2D, borrowing from the classic tradition of 2 and 2.5D Metroidvanias. Maybe you could even see this be a fully 2D game, and that would be very, very different for Pikmin. The game could star the Pikmin themselves, maybe Ochi, Moss, Olimar, secondary characters like the Copiates. I think that's true for all of these. We don't know what main characters are going to be in this game, but it's very interesting, right? I made a recent video discussing what characters could be the main characters for Pikmin 5, and I think that's actually more relevant to this spin-off than it is to Pikmin 5 itself, so if you're curious about that topic, I would check out that video in the iCard above, and just take for granted that I'm not talking about Pikmin 5, but I'm talking about this spin-off, and there you go. I guess the big thing that hurts this game's chances, in my opinion, is the likelihood of Nintendo making yet another Metroidvania game when they already have the Metroid series, especially the Metroid series coming back into full swing. Like, I think this would be the perfect way to do a spiritual successor to Hey Pikmin. I think it'd be the perfect approach to take for a new Pikmin game in 2D that's different, but I just see the likeliness as overall low to medium because Nintendo owns Metroid and is working on getting Metroid back in the swing of things, especially with Metroid Prime 4 and Metroid Dread, and I mean, Metroid is the Metroid in Metroidvania, right? The next genre is very close to the Pikmin series' roots, and that would be a true real-time strategy game, similar to Age of Empires or StarCraft. This would be a completely new type of gameplay for the series, and although Pikmin has many similarities to real-time strategy, it's different from this style of game overall. The art style would clearly change. I mean, it would be top-down now. Maybe you could give orders to leaders and then go in and control those leaders manually. Maybe it could be a more competitively focused game like StarCraft. Maybe expanding on the idea of Dandori battles. There are many ways this could be taken. Time is in the name of real-time strategy, and I think that would incorporate the hourglass very, very well. And this is not a genre that exactly would need to reinvent the wheel. Nintendo doesn't have a true real-time strategy, so getting this game out fast would make a lot of sense. Though I think the likeliness is overall really low. Pikmin is Nintendo's answer to real-time strategy, and it always has been, and I think it always will be. Though, this would be a Pikmin game that is a real-time strategy, so, I'm gonna bump that up to medium. I could see this being a medium likeliness. It's just, something feels wrong about having a Pikmin game that plays like a real-time strategy. Like, I can't imagine how that would work, right? Especially with things like building construction and that sort of thing in traditional real-time strategy. It just doesn't seem to fit well with Pikmin, but I would love to be proven wrong. The next genre is also important to the development of the original Pikmin and the original Dandori genre, which is the God game. This would of course be a completely new type of gameplay for the series. Of course, the original Adam and Eve prototype version of Pikmin took from this genre, and that's where I got the idea to maybe have a Pikmin God game eventually, but it just would be so strange. You would play, I guess from an omniscient observer's point of view, helping the Pikmin do tasks, and it'd be a little bit like Lemmings, perhaps. I could see this actually being a really, really interesting way to play the game, especially if the God mechanic, in quotes, is the concept of time management, or literally using an hourglass or some sort of way to manipulate the planet's time to help out the Pikmin. Art style change, I mean, this would be the perfect setting to have a top-down 2D or top-down 3D art style that's very different from normal Pikmin, and I could see this being a fairly easy game to develop compared to a normal Pikmin game. I actually think this has a pretty high likelihood of being the style of game we see, a game focused on the Pikmin themselves without interference from a leader, and overall just a different type of management game within the Pikmin universe. Another genre I could see this game easily taking on is the puzzle game genre. Of course, this also is a completely new type of gameplay for the series. I mean, Pikmin has dabbled in puzzles before, especially with the weight puzzles that have appeared in Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 3, but I think this would be a different thing altogether. More like Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker being a puzzle spin-off from the main Mario series, though it is important to say that Captain Toad did directly get its mechanical start in a Mario entry, where this probably would be something entirely new. Art style-wise, I don't know why, but Pushmo kind of is in my head as the aesthetic template that this would be borrowing from, and I don't know why. This is very different from Pikmin, right? Speaking of Pikmin, I think there's a good chance that the Pikmin themselves are the playable characters, or perhaps they're kind of lemming-like, and the player has to manipulate time in order to get them to move to solve puzzles, or to survive, or whatever the goal of the game actually is. I could see this game being either 2D or 3D, with a 2D game being more similar to Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and a 3D game being similar to, again, Captain Toad. I think this is a pretty likely game, all things considered, to come out within the next fiscal year if there really is a Pikmin spin-off in development. I think this is a really simple concept that could be really fun and really, really deep, but we'll have to see what they do. Another genre I think is totally plausible would be a simulation game. Now there's many ways they could take this, but what I think could be an amazing way for this to fit with the Pikmin series is by being a Piklopedia wildlife sim, or, if we want to get really spicy, a Pikmin shipping company game where you play as Hocotate Freight. Although I think it's very unlikely that you're going to play as the Hocatations and ship things. I mean, what opportunity is there for Pikmin there? The titular main characters, right? That being said, I really like the idea of a simulation wildlife sim sort of Piklopedia game in general. Just a really, really deep, rich Piklopedia game. I think it'd be a really, really interesting spin from the main series, though I don't know how likely it would be. I think a 2D Piklopedia, if you want to change the art style, could be fascinating, but I think it's more likely to be 3D and to resemble some of the Pokédex games that have been made over the years. Now, granted, if this is a simulation game about shipping with Hocotate, time is a really easy concept to include, right? If perhaps you have to manage the company and make sure you're sending things to the right locations, but again, I think that's so unlikely. I think if we're getting a simulation game, and almost certainly is taking place on PNF 404, I could see some sort of time manipulation mechanic if it happened to be a wildlife sim, or maybe you are able to change the day and nighttime and see how things play out, but I just don't know. The problem I have with this concept is the same problem the original Pikmin developers have, which is trying to figure out what the gameplay actually would be here. What would the player actually be doing? And for that reason, I think the likeliness of this idea being the spin-off that we see is pretty low. The next genre I've selected is turn-based strategy, and this one is a personal favorite of mine. I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan, and I've heard a lot of people say that this would be a genre they'd like to see Pikmin have a spin-off in at some point, and I personally just don't see it. Although it would be a dramatic new type of gameplay for the series, I have a hard time figuring out exactly how you would make this work. Maybe you would have a grid-based strategy game and have the Pikmin group together into numbered groups, and you would move them a la Fire Emblem or Advance Wars, but I just have a hard time envisioning how this style of gameplay would work. Perhaps for time management reasons you could turn back time, or maybe everyone has to plan their moves and then everything happens in real time. Maybe it's a sort of management turn-based strategy game where you are commanding Pikmin a la an RTS, but everything plays out in real time, so it's about making your plans in advance. That could be really cool, and the art style could maybe be a top-down game. I could see a game where you control Pikmin from an omniscient point of view, rather than having a direct leader on the field. The problem is, every time I think about this, it just slowly turns more and more into a traditional RTS, which, again, we've already covered. But I can't lie, this is a little close to the idea of the DS patented Pikmin games that never came into fruition. We know about this because of patent US 7762893, which I'll be showing you an illustration from on the screen here, which was a sort of Pikmin game where you controlled the Pikmin from an omniscient point of view for the DS. However, this game obviously was never made on the DS, and there were clearly reasons to abandon this style of gameplay, but maybe it's time for this to come back. Maybe this is how it's going to work as a real-time strategy, maybe this is how it's going to work as a turn-based strategy. I just don't know. Overall, I'd say the likeliness is medium, really. There's just a lot of questions on how the game would actually play out. That prevents it from being high likelihood, in my opinion. Alright, the next genre I'd like to talk about is a farming sim or gardening game. What's in my head with this is Viva Pinata, which is a rare developed gardening game where you raise a bunch of pinatas, and I think this thing could be perfect for Pikmin, especially if you take ideas like the Pikmin Park from Hey Pikmin and just make it a whole game, but with a whole gardening 3D or 2D kind of aspect. It could be so much fun to just grow up your Pikmin and build a Pikmin armada and just to farm and build a nice, beautiful, natural environment. There's so many cool ideas you could do with a farming or gardening Pikmin game. They could have you growing Pikmin from seeds, or collecting onions, or building creature enclosures, or raising up Pikmin populations. We could get new Pikmin types here. Matter of fact, that's something I'd like to take a tangent for a minute. All of these games could potentially bring us a new Pikmin type, and that's awesome, though I don't know how likely it would be. I mean, Bulbmin and Puffmin already haven't returned in any form since their original incarnation, and I don't know if we'll ever see Glow Pikmin or Ice Pikmin again. Pikmin Bloom has yet to include Ice Pikmin, and the original Hey Pikmin left Purple and White Pikmin behind, despite including them in the Onion, so I really wouldn't bank on a new type or even all of the original types returning, but it would be cool. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, the gardening sim genre for a Pikmin spin-off. I think this could be very, very likely, all things considered, especially because we know that Pikmin and the Animal Crossing fanbase have some sort of crossover based on Switch statistics. We know that Nintendo wants to drag in more casual fans, and I think Pikmin could appeal to more casual fans, but the games overall are pretty complex. We've seen new mechanics in Pikmin 4 that have allowed more casual fans to join the series, for example Ochi, for example the ability to turn back time, and I think this could be a great way to have a casual style Pikmin game that brings in more of that Animal Crossing casual fanbase, and that's awesome. The problem, farming sims are oversaturated as a genre right now, and I have a hard time finding a place that this would really fit within that genre. other than maybe a 3D Viva Pinata-like gardening sim. I have a hard time seeing it be a Stardew clone, and that's probably a good thing. Art style change, I mean, this could be 2D, this could be 3D, it could be painterly, it could be papercraft, there's all sorts of ways they could take this. I think time would be pretty easy to incorporate overall as well, especially because, I mean, a lot of farming sims already run on a day-night cycle, and this would be a really, really easy way to make it so, hey, you have to farm during the day, and then get out during night, maybe some different gameplay with the glow Pikmin at nighttime. There'd be really, really interesting ways that they could make things work back and forth with a time mechanic here. Maybe you could turn back time and retry things with farming, or maybe you could fast forward. I don't know. I'm not making the game, but I think it'd be really interesting to see this sort of concept play out. This sort of game could even have similar controls to mainline Pikmin games, but it's used for commanding the Pikmin to help with farming tasks if the developers so chose. That said, I think it's much more likely that this game will have completely different gameplay from the main series, and that's okay. Especially because, again, the leak says that the main series is retaining traditional gameplay. I actually think this is a medium to high likeliness overall, though I would admit I'd be a little disappointed if this game ends up being just another mid-farming sim. If it was a great gardening game, I'd be so there for it, but we'll have to see. The penultimate genre I'd like to propose for this potential Pikmin spin-off is an RPG. Now, this would of course be a brand new type of gameplay for the series, but the reason I actually bring it up is because Pikmin 4 started to incorporate RPG elements. Light RPG elements, mind you, but with things like the progression system for Ochi. Now, the question would be, what kind of characters are being played, right? The Pikmin aren't individuated enough to really probably have RPG-style progression and personalities, and really, making a Pikmin RPG is really hard, because there's a lot of decisions that go against the core values of the series, and against the general lack of individuality of the Pikmin. But then again, the Pikmin short movies have breathed a lot of life into the Pikmin as individuals, and of course there have been fan projects that have tried to do this for a long time. I think it's totally possible. Definitely would make sense for an art style change for an RPG, right? I could see something akin to the Paper Mario games, I could see something completely different, and an RPG with a time mechanic tied into the main gameplay gimmick would be really neat. For example, time-based battles, or a time mechanic for the overall exploration system. Maybe it could be a 2D HD game if we're going for a weird RPG style that's different from Pikmin, right? I don't know, there's a lot of cool things you could do with this. Problem, I just don't see it as that likely. Like, it's such a departure from the standard way Pikmin is right now that I'm gonna say it's a low likelihood. That being said, I would love it. I think a lot of people would be really excited, and I think it could be really cool. And last but not least, for our final genre of the video, and my personal favorite, we could potentially see the spin-off still be a Dandori game, but be a different Dandori approach. Now, you might be like, that's clearly going to have similar gameplay to Pikmin, this doesn't align with the leak, and you might be right, but you also might be wrong. I mean, imagine a Dandori game focused around Bulbmin. I know I'd go crazy if they announced a game simply called Bulbmin in the next direct. Like, it could be focused on managing different types, by capturing large creatures, and drawing from scrap mechanics left over in Pikmin 4's development, a completely new type of game for the series, while still being a game that follows in the traditional mechanical footsteps of the series. You could easily change the art style of this game too, to separate it from mainline Pikmin, and it still would be a Pikmin game, in the same way that, say, Luigi's Mansion is a Mario game, or Wario Land is a Mario game, right? Like, it's part of the same IP, but it's a spin-off focusing on different characters that would bear the title of those characters if it was, say, Bulbmin. I think there's so much that could work here. The concept of time / the hourglass emoji makes sense in this context, because again, you could have a time management aspect be a main part of the game, just like with Pikmin. And it could just be developed in the same engine or by the same devs as Pikmin 4, and easily come out next fiscal year. It would explain a lot of the continued Pikmin momentum and marketing. I think it'd be really, really cool, and would be personally my favorite approach they can take, like, easily. That being said, we all know I love the Pikmin games, and of course I love their gameplay, so of course I'm gonna say that my preference for this would be high, but I do think the likeliness is still overall low. just because, again, Pikmin games clearly take a long time to develop, as we know with Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4, and of course, well, it's supposed to be a different type of gameplay, a new type of gameplay for the series, and unfortunately, this just seems like another Pikmin game. Now granted, I would love it, but I don't know if I can, in good consciousness, say this is likely. It is, however, again, my favorite idea for what a Pikmin spin-off could look like. Now that we've gone through all of these genres, and yes, I am well aware there are more genres that this game could potentially be, for example, a party game a la Mario Party, I think it's time to talk about lore implications, and what this game could potentially do for series lore. Will this game push the series lore that much, or will it be pretty clearly non-canon, just like other spin-offs such as Pikmin Adventure or Pikmin Bloom? One thing frequent channel collaborator DavoGato and I have talked about is potentially the playable character of this game being the planet itself, rather than any creature or the Pikmin, and if that were the case, perhaps this entry would finally explain what exactly the Pikmin planet is and why it's changed continents multiple times. I'm pretty back and forth on this, right? Like, I could see, if this is a spin-off in a certain genre, this game having a new final boss that has huge implications for the series, for example, another Wraith. Or, I could see this game having nothing to do with the series' overarching lore at all. And I guess that's where we're at, right? In terms of final thoughts on this, there's just so little to go off of with this leak. It's possibly true, right? That we'll get a new game, it'll be a spin-off, it'll stand out from the series with new gameplay, its artistic style will be different, it'll be soon, but that's so vague, right? We really know nothing about the next Pikmin game at all. Maybe it is another mainline entry, and maybe it takes another 10 years to get here. Though, I think with the sales of Pikmin 4 being as they've been, and the recent uptick in popularity for the series, I kind of buy into a leak like this much more than I would buy into leaks about prior Pikmin games. That all being said, what do you think? Do you think this leak is plausible? Do you think this is real? Do you think that we're going to get any of these potential games in these genres? Do you have a different genre idea for Pikmin spin-off to take? Do you think we're getting a spin-off at all? What do you think the next numbered title is going to be like? Please, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Vantage Emblem. It is genuinely so surreal to me that I'm making a video like this. I mean, not too long ago, Pikmin 4 wasn't even a guarantee. And now we're here talking about another Pikmin spin-off. Just thank you guys for being awesome. We really have transformed the popularity of this series, and it's thanks to everyone here, old fans and new, and I couldn't be more appreciative. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!